Welcome to Solar Oregon's How to Go Solar and Storage workshop. My name is Nicole, and I'm a program manager here at Solar Oregon. Our nonprofit has been providing workshops like this one for over 16 years, and we work to provide reliable education and information that you, as a homeowner or business owner, can use to make good and informed decisions about solar and solar plus storage. So, thank you for joining us. Today, we'll cover many aspects of solar and solar plus battery storage. We'll start by taking a look at how solar works. We'll see what components make up a system. We'll learn about a process called net metering and learn how you can get credit for the energy you export to the grid when you have a grid tied system, and see how solar can save you money on your utility bills. We'll also look at how solar contractors assess your home. We'll see common issues with potential sites that can increase the cost of solar or installation. And we'll also take a look at home battery storage and how that can work to make your solar more effective, as well as how storage can help you access energy when the grid is down. After that, we'll learn about incentives that are available and also talk about how you can connect to a reputable contractor in your area. We'll have a Q&A session after this presentation, so feel free to add questions to the Q&A as we go through this workshop, and we will work to answer those at the end of the presentation. Solar Oregon is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, and we work to encourage solar and storage adoption throughout the state of Oregon. We've been around for over 46 years. We do our work by providing reliable, impartial consumer education, working to build a clean energy community, and performing outreach and advocacy. We also host Solarize campaigns, solar tours, zero energy showcases, and expert panel discussions on a range of topics. Our Green Energy series is once a month and covers a range of topics related to solar. Solar Oregon is a member-based nonprofit, so thank you to our previous and current members for supporting our programming. Members receive special discounts to events like our Solar Wine Tour, which will be this May 10th, and our Go Zero Energy Homes Tour, which happens in the fall each year. Going to add some helpful resources to the chat. And so I'll be adding these in the chat a few times throughout the workshop. They have links to our website, as well as other good resources for solar and home battery storage in our state. We usually have different workshops and showcases each month, and then we have our reoccurring workshops on how to go solar and storage, as well as comparing solar quotes. So our comparing solar quotes workshop will be next week. So we hope you can join that as well. This workshop series is supported by the Energy Trust of Oregon. Energy Trust is an independent nonprofit that was established in 2002 that helps provide resources to help enable customers of investor-owned utilities in our state to use energy efficiently and gain access to renewable energy. They offer key incentives for solar installation and battery storage. So thank you, Energy Trust. And for more information about Energy Trust of Oregon, you can check out their website, which is energytrust.org. A few housekeeping notes. Please put any of your questions in the Q&A box, and that will have a little label that says Q&A, and we'll be using the chat today to put in resource links as we go through the workshop. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A so we don't miss them in the chat box. And before we jump into the main part of our presentation, we're just going to run a few polls to learn a little bit more about you and where you're joining from today. So I'll go ahead and launch those now. This first poll is about where you're joining from in the state. This next one is a demographics poll. And then this third poll that we're launching is about familiarity with the Energy Trust of Oregon incentives. Thank you all for taking the time to answer those polls. That helps us improve our programming in these workshops. So thank you very much. All right, so we'll jump right back into how solar works. This diagram is of a typical home solar system. You can see that the house is in the middle of the diagram. Sunlight would strike the solar panels, which are labeled here as photovoltaic PV panels. And when sunlight hits your solar panels, that produces a special voltage of electricity called DC electricity or direct current. And then that needs to get converted by the inverter or microinverters to AC electricity or alternating current, which is used by the appliances and outlets in your home. Once it's converted to AC, the electricity flows to your home electrical panel, and then it can be used in your home. If your system is grid tied, like this example, you would also get a special utility meter that is a bidirectional meter that would measure the flow of energy going out from your home that you produce with your solar, as well as any electricity that you need to pull from the grid when your solar is producing less. And when you go solar, you we'll also need these inverters that we talked about. So I'll jump into those next. But as you can see from this diagram, solar is pretty simple and low maintenance. So here is a closer look at the inverters. That's that component that would convert the DC electricity to AC electricity. The white box in the image on the left is a example of a string inverter. It accepts electricity from all the solar panels and converts it all at once, and is usually mounted on the wall next to your electrical panel or can be installed outside, like in this picture. The smaller black boxes that are pictured on the right are microinverters. These are installed immediately beneath the solar panels, and each microinverter takes in electricity from one to two panels. Both of these inverter types are great options, are installed frequently in Oregon. Your contractor may suggest one over the other based on the specific needs of your system, or they might specialize in a certain setup. Solar panels can be mounted either on your roof or as a ground mount. It's pretty common in more urban areas to see roof mounted solar. Ground mounting systems might be more common if you have access to more land. And then because those panels do need to be connected to the rest of your system, if you do have ground mounted panels that are farther away, you will need to run more conduit, and that can increase the cost of your system. There is another type of technology called solar tiles or solar shingles, and this is both a solar panel and a roofing product. There are different brands of these solar tiles. Most solar installation companies um, either specialize in a certain type of panel or module. If you're looking or interested in solar roof tiles, it's good to check if your solar contractor has experience installing these. And you can also ask for example projects that they've recently installed these on. Um, it can be more expensive to install solar roof tiles because this is newer technology and it also has a different installation method. Um, but if it's something you're interested in, you'll want to ask your contractor if that's something they have experience installing and compare the costs of installing these solar roof tiles with also a cost of installing a traditional system. As mentioned earlier, if your solar system is producing more electricity, that'll flow back out to the grid, and your bidirectional meter will measure that electricity you export to the grid. Net metering is the process that allows you to account for the energy that you export so you can gain credit for it. And this is why it's important to have a home solar system that matches your electricity consumption and needs. We'll illustrate this with a couple examples here. So we'll show a typical summer month. You can see that on the left. And so you can see the orange bar represents how much electricity you're producing with your solar, and the blue bar represents your consumption. So in summer months, you can be producing more than you're consuming. And so if you do that, you'll have a net metering credit earned, which is demonstrated by that green arrow. And net metering years start on April 1st so that you can build up a bank of credits during these sunny summer months that you can pull on in the winter months. And so we have an example winter month on the right. And in the winter, your production would be less. So you might need to pull from the grid. And so if that's the case, you'd want enough bank that you could pull from that um, credits that you have built up um, to avoid having to pay for additional electricity to pull from the grid. And it's important to know that these net metering credits will roll over month to month. And like I said, they start in April. So they'll roll over month to month, but they don't roll over year to year. So anything you haven't used by March 31st will be donated to low income subscribers or customers um, for the electricity grid. So it's still going to your community, which is great. Uh, but this is why your system will you'll want to match it to what you consume so that you aren't left with a bunch of unused credits. Here's an example energy bill. This is an example from a PGE customer. In the box on the left, you can see the period for which you're being billed, um, as well as the reading on your bidirectional meter at the time of this bill. And thanks to your new bidirectional meter, the electricity you import from the grid is recorded separately from what you export. So you can see the total amount of electricity coming into your home this month um, that you produced extra um, is 327 kilowatts. So you were a net exporter this month because you produced more with your solar than you consumed or pulled from the grid. And because you were a net exporter, your billable kilowatt hours for this month is 0. As you may notice, the bill isn't 0, and this is because this is a grid-tied system. So um, your utility connection comes with a base charge. And compared to a typical energy bill, it's a lot less. You can see here can range from $12 to $18 for that base charge to be interconnected with the grid. And then because you're grid tied, you have that ability to still pull electricity if your production on your solar is low. Solar is highly modular and customizable, and residential solar systems can vary widely in size and design. System size for solar is measured in a unit called kW or kilowatts, and the average residential size in Oregon is around 8 kilowatts. And so to determine the size of your system, there are different factors that can impact system size, such as your budget, the available space you have to install panels, aesthetics. If you're part of an HOA, there might be restrictions on how solar is installed. And so if you are expecting to add additions to your home or make changes that'll increase or decrease your expected electricity consumption, you'll want to let your contractor know so that they can factor that in when they're considering the design of your system and what size it should be, because they'll be looking at old energy bills, how much solar resource you have access to. And so uh, if you're going to be adding something like an EV charger, you'll want to let your contractor know so they can plan for that in the system design. All right, so after we looked at a quick um, look at how solar works, we're going to jump into some of the aspects of your home that can make it easier or more difficult to go solar. So we talked about solar access, and so what that is the amount of sun that you can access on your home. So if you're installing solar on your roof, what parts of your roof receive more of that sun? This diagram shows a home and its cardinal directions. And here in Oregon, you'll see solar panels installed on south facing, east facing, and west facing roofs usually, but south facing will usually get the most solar resource. You usually will not see solar installed on north facing roofs. The amount of shade that you have can impact your ability to go solar. So even if you have a perfect south facing roof, if you get a lot of shade from trees or buildings, that could impact the amount of solar resource you can access. And so with shading, a contractor can help you assess how much that could impact your system. They'll be able to do this either with solar software or solar satellite software where they can see how much sunlight your roof gets, or they can use a special type of measurement tool on site to see as well. And That's something to consider. If you do have a lot of shade on your roof, you can consider installing solar on maybe another outbuilding on your property, doing ground mounted solar, or even being part of community solar, which we'll talk about shortly. The complexity of your roof can also impact your ability to go solar. So, a simpler roof is going to be easier to install an uninterrupted array on, and the pitch of your roof can also add to complexity. Contractors have to follow certain codes about roof setbacks and the ways they have to lay out the panels. The biggest factor that can affect whether you're able to go solar is your roof condition. And so your roof will need to be um, at least 10 to have 10 plus years of life. A typical solar panel will last 20 to 25 years. So if your roof has 20 plus years of life, that's excellent because it's matching that um, life of the panel. If you need to replace your roof and you've got solar installed, you'll have to uninstall the panels and system and redo your roof and then reinstall it. And so that creates an additional cost. So having enough roof life is super important. Um, Contractors can install on many different types of roofs. So metal roofs and asphalt shingle roofs and other roofs do work with solar. If you are expecting to need to re-roof in the next few years, you can consider lining up um, that new roof installation with solar so that they both have similar life. What's underneath your roof can also affect your ability to go solar. In order to get building permits for your installation, your contractor will get inside your attic to check the structure of your roof. Some jurisdictions are pickier than others about the requirements. In general, Multnomah County can have more strict requirements than other counties in our state. Newer homes tend to have trusses, which are pictured on the left, and so usually these will meet modern codes. Older homes tend to have um, they might like lack these trusses or need some additional engineering or structural supports before they can meet the code to install solar. So just keep that in mind. If you have an older home, your contractor will have to assess um, your roof, and if additional engineering or structural reinforcements are needed, that could increase your cost. If you live in a manufactured home that is on land you own, ground mounted solar could be a possible option. And we mentioned community solar earlier. And so community solar is where you would actually subscribe to a solar installation that is off-site, not on your property, and you can access renewable energy that way through our state. There is a standard program as well as an income qualified community solar program. So if that's something you're interested in, that could be an option to participate in renewable energy if you're not installing solar right now or if you rent. So it's a good option to look into. We're going to jump right into solar plus storage. It's important to know that your solar system by itself does not allow you to use the solar electricity that you produce during a power outage. To do this, you'll have to add a battery. And this ability to use power when the grid is down is called energy resilience. And so solar can help make your um, storage more effective. Solar and battery storage are complementary technologies. Um, Solar can help you recharge that battery, and that battery will allow you to access your solar independently from the grid. Here's an example of what solar and storage might look like on a home with the storage installed in the garage. And you can see typical roof mounted solar. Power outages can vary in their causes and frequencies, so it's important to consider what type of outage you're looking to endure and have that conversation with a contractor when you're looking at designing your system. When it comes to picking a battery, there are many good products on the market. Due to manufacturing certification requirements, some contractors might specialize in certain brands. And so, if you are wanting to compare different battery technologies, it's great to get a few different quotes from contractors. And so, we usually recommend at least 3 quotes if you're able to get that in your area. If you're in more rural parts of Oregon, there might be less solar contractors who are servicing that area. But if you can, 3 is a good number because then you can compare what you're getting and the different designs as well to see what you prefer. It's important to know that you cannot mix and match battery brands. But within these battery brands, there are different modules that are different sizes, from 3 kilowatt hours all the way up to a really big battery that's like 20 kilowatt hours. Um, in Oregon, a typical battery size is 13.5 kilowatt hours. And so batteries and their capacity are usually measured in kWh. And so you'll see kilowatt hours listed when describing battery storage capacity. And then we're going to jump into how do you decide how many batteries are right for you? So there are options to have one battery, to have additional batteries with your system, and it just depends on what your goals are as well as your budget. It's important to set your expectations properly about what a battery can do and what it cannot do. So even if you don't use much electricity, a single battery will usually not back up an entire home for a long time. And so usually a partial backup is the option that is usually selected. And so in this scenario, certain circuits in your home will receive power from the battery, but the rest of your home will lose power in an outage. And so if you're able and willing, to add battery storage, it's really important to consider what type of outage you're looking to endure, and if you're interested in a partial or whole home backup. When you get a partial home backup, the way you divide your home into sections that are backed up and sections that are not is based on the breakers in your electrical panel. When you've selected the circuits you'd like to receive battery power, your contractor will often remove those and replace them with a newly installed essential and place them into an essential loads panel. And so this second electrical panel is wired to the battery. There are also options now for smart electrical panels on the market that can actually just replace your current electrical panel. And they give you some options for load flexibility. So if you're looking to do a partial backup or whole home backup, there might be updates that you need to make to your electrical panel. And then also consider if you're going to do an essential loads panel or look into some of these newer smart electrical panels. The battery system size process entails another conversation with your contractor, balancing your functionality and budget. A great way to think of this is with two questions: what needs power and for how long? Items most frequently chosen to be backed up include a refrigerator to keep food from spoiling, lights in common areas, and a couple of outlets so you can charge laptops and cell phones. If you're interested in installing a battery, when you install can affect the system design and the price. Um, if you install solar and storage at the same time, there's some efficiencies because you're incorporating it into the system design. Um, you can retrofit a system and add storage later. Um, just know there might need to be some updates that have to be made depending on how old your system is and also to incorporate that battery into your system. Battery storage can require a lot of physical space. Usually, the systems aren't as big as the one pictured here, um, but batteries can't be put in cupboards or small enclosed spaces and have to follow National Electrical Code. We're going to jump right into current incentives. And so, with any incentives or tax credits, it's really important to know that these can change depending on current policies. Currently, right now, there is the ITC or Solar Investment Tax Credit, which is a dollar for dollar tax credit, meaning you can reduce the taxes you owe by 30% of the cost of your solar and or battery storage installation. So it does cover right now solar and storage. So if you were looking to like add storage to a current system, you could do that. Um, so to get this credit, you must apply for it when you file your taxes. If you don't have enough tax liability or taxes you owe in the first year, you can claim this credit over a few years. And this is just a disclaimer, Solar Oregon is not a tax professional or a tax organization. So the information we're sharing is just for educational purposes. Uh, as has to deal with your finances, it's great to get the advice of a qualified tax professional if you're interested in claiming this tax credit. There are a few things just to know about the ITC. So it does cover both solar and battery storage. It applies to traditional panels as well as solar roof tiles. The incentive is pretty straightforward, and there's certain forms that you might need to fill out, which are listed here. And there are also some local incentives um, for PGE and Pacific Power customers. So Energy Trust of Oregon has a standard incentive that is a flat $950 for customers of PGE or $1,100 for customers of Pacific Power who are installing solar. This incentive is applied immediately and is applied for by your installer. Your system does need to be installed by a Energy Trust Trade Ally contractor, and we'll talk about those trade allies a little later in the presentation. So in order to get this incentive, you do have to work with a trade ally and they apply for it on your behalf. For this standard incentive, there is also one for storage, and that is $475 dollars per kilowatt hour, up to $5,700. And so you can receive this incentive whether you install solar and storage at the same time or separately. And just as a reminder, in order to receive the incentive, you have to work with a trade ally contractor and have your system installed by them. If your utility is not PGE or Pacific Power, you don't qualify for the Energy Trust of Oregon incentives, but it's always good to check with your utility provider to see if they have any local incentives available. Energy Trust of Oregon also has an income qualified incentive under Solar Within Reach. And Solar Within Reach is a dollar per watt incentive and allows PGE and Pacific Power customers to reduce their installation costs. You do still have to work with an Energy Trust Trade Ally contractor. And for example, a household of four qualifies for Solar Within Reach if their total income is less than $128,564. And energytrust.org /Solar Within Reach has the income thresholds for this incentive. And so you can check there to see if you qualify. I'm going to go ahead and put the links we posted earlier back in the chat, and that does have a link for Energy Trust as well. And we'll repost those one more time at the end of the presentation. All right. And we covered reasons why costs could vary previously, but just to recap, the system size can impact the cost of your solar if you need to re-roof or get structural upgrades or analysis, add any engineering or structural supports that can increase the cost of your solar, as well as the access to incentives will also impact your cost. Those Energy Trust of Oregon incentives, you get those immediately and they're applied for by your trade ally contractor. And then the ITC federal tax credit, you would be applying for that credit when you do your taxes. And the reasons that the cost of storage can vary are pretty similar. So, access to incentives can impact the cost. If you need to do any upgrades, such as an electrical panel upgrade, or if you're installing multiple batteries, can impact your cost. And also, when you install your battery, can impact your cost. We'll walk through a couple sample budgets. This sample budget is looking at a example where someone is just adding 8 kilowatts of solar to their home. And so we show 4 different types of customer types if you're Pacific Power, PGE, Or if you're LMI, so low to moderate income or income qualifying, where you can access those increased income qualified incentives. And you can see, depending on what incentives you can access, you can decrease your out of pocket costs anywhere from um, $950 to over $6,000. And then on one of the bottom rows, you can see the federal tax credit, which is 30% of your cost. And so that would be applied for when you do your taxes, and you do have to have tax liability to apply for this credit. And then with the credit and incentives, you can increase, your costs, your energy savings, um, by anywhere from 10,000 to uh, almost 15,000 or more dollars, just depending on what you can access. And then that is before you start saving money on your energy bills as well. The second budget example is for solar and storage. So this example is showing if a homeowner had gotten 8 kilowatts of solar and 13.5 kilowatt hours of storage, which will be one battery. And so because there is the incentive for storage as well, that decrease of out-of-pocket costs can anywhere be from a decrease in $6,600 all the way to almost 20,000. And then there's also that federal tax credit as well. And then this last budget example is showing if you add storage after you've installed solar. And so it's just reflecting that by adding solar storage later to your solar, you could be losing some efficiencies in the system design. You might need to update a few things in order to incorporate that solar, but that storage, and there is incentives available still for storage. And so that can help with that out-of-pocket cost. And then the federal tax credit currently covers both solar and storage. So even if you're just adding storage, you can still apply for that federal tax credit. Because solar and battery storage entail a large upfront cost, many homeowners utilize financing. Some homeowners obtain a loan through a bank, with which they have an existing relationship. Some banks do not provide loan products specifically for solar, so your contractor may partner with a credit union or third-party broker that offers a package geared towards solar. These types of loans may allow you to refinance when you claim your ITC federal tax credit, which can help minimize the total interest you owe. Um, and note that the interest payments on your loan do not qualify for the federal tax credit. And with any major financial decision, make sure you carefully assess your financing options. Take your time, read through the contract. You want to be looking and comparing multiple quotes. So we usually recommend three. So if you can get three different quotes for your solar and or solar plus storage, that's a great way to compare different financing options. And when you're looking at financing, you want to be sure to look at all the fees and also see if there's any dealer fees and what those are. Now we'll jump right into how you can find a contractor. So we talked a little bit earlier about the Energy Trust Trade Ally contractors. And so besides Energy Trust offering incentives, they have a certification program for contractors to help ensure a high quality of workmanship. Energy Trust Trade Ally contractors have been rigorously vetted, and they are the only contractors who can offer you the Energy Trust of Oregon solar incentives. And so like we said before, we recommend getting at least three quotes to compare if you're able. To get connected with a Energy Trust Trade Ally contractor, you can use Energy Trust Solar Bid Tool. This online form takes 3 to 5 minutes to complete and is a good way to make sure you're being connected with a solar contractor that can best serve your solar and storage needs. And I'll just re-put that link in the chat. And so this has resources for solar and storage information and has that solar bid tool so you can be connected to contractors. Once you've selected your contractor and you receive quotes, you can review those. And then if you see something that works well for your home, you can sign the contract. Once you do that, here's what you can expect with the installation process. Your contractor will handle permitting and apply for the Energy Trust of Oregon state incentives on your behalf and design your system. It's important to remember they will need your signature on these documents. So the more organized you are, the smoother the process will be. Although system design can be quick, some jurisdictions have permitting delays or longer permitting. So, for example, in Multnomah County, um, there can be longer permitting times than Washington County. However, once it's time to break ground and installations pretty quick, usually 1 to 4 days. If you are installing a more complex system with a lot of batteries, then it'll be closer to the 4 days. And once you're installed, your contractor will manage your permit inspections and coordinate the installation for your new bidirectional meter and schedule your interconnection to the utility. This can take 2 to 3 weeks to get interconnected. And once you are interconnected, your system will be producing clean and renewable power straight from the sunlight falling on your property. And so we hope that gave you a good run through of the basics of solar and storage and how you can get started, and we'll jump right into Q&A. And so just a reminder, throw any questions you have in the Q&A box, and I will take a look at Q&A now. Okay. Is there a recommended roof type that lasts longer or works better with solar if you're looking at doing your roof along with installing solar? So solar does work with many different roof types. Metal roofs, so the standing seam metal roofs last a long time. They have a very long lifespan. So that could be something if you're thinking about the lifespan of your roof.